Hi, this is Knighton Tallarico. It is, oh good, it's not April Fool's Day. It's April 2nd, the day after April Fool's Day. Yeah, we're also a few days after Mercury went back direct again. And we're about a month beyond the end of eclipse season. So it's actually a pretty good time to be discussing what's been happening, where we're at, and what's coming up. The next few years will be truly monumental in the United States. Starting in 2019 now, really picking up the pace in 2020. 2020 should be unbelievably powerful. And then 2021 will also be a strong year with a lot of change, lots of transformation. And even into 2022 and 23. But let's focus for the most part today on 2019, 20, and a little bit of 2021. I've got Trump's chart and I've got the United States chart to help us understand a few things about what's coming. I don't know, I think I've explained before how the way that I do predictions on presidents and things like that, and I was right on both Obama and Trump months ahead of time when no one even thought that they were a possibility. And the reason I was accurate in that is because what I do mainly is I take a look at different candidates' charts and then compare it to where the United States chart is. And then I look at the changes that are coming through planetary movement and how that affects the United States and how it affects the candidate. That's how I was able to select both those guys. So this time, it's not going to be that quick and easy because I think the Democrats have 15 or 18 candidates, so I'll be doing a lot of studying, but I hope to be able to bring you all something definitive by the end of this year. But right now, let's just concentrate on Trump's chart and the United States chart and the places those two charts come together. Now, one place that those two charts come together is at the United States Mars. The United States Mars is at 21 plus degrees of Gemini. Trump's sun is at 22 degrees of Gemini. And his moon is directly opposite at 21 degrees of Sagittarius. So the United States Mars is connected to basically who Donald Trump is, because the sun and the moon, quite arguably, are a very important part of who a person and any entity is. So, but it's the Mars that he's connected to the United States. So that should tell you the kind of things that are coming our way in the not too distant future. The other place that they connect is the United States Pluto, 27 degrees Capricorn. And Trump has his Venus Saturn conjunction at 23 to 25 degrees of Cancer, so directly opposite USA Pluto. And those will be two of the places we're going to concentrate on today because a lot of the transits that are coming up will be affecting those places where the United States and Trump coincide with their planetary connections. So, in April, this April, Pluto will be stationing opposite. Now we're in April now, so quite soon. Pluto will be stationing, meaning changing directions from retrograde to direct, right at, let me make sure I got this right now, right opposite Trump's Saturn. Trump's Saturn's at 23 degrees of Cancer. Pluto will be at 23 degrees of Capricorn. The Saturn in a natal chart is it's like a grounding. It's like security, stability, and control. So with Pluto opposite Trump's Saturn, that means that all those areas of his life will begin. And this is just the beginning in April. That transit's going to last for 2 years. So it's the beginning of the unraveling of what he considers security. It's conjunct Venus, So when you add Venus to the Saturn in his natal chart, that's security Saturn and its sense of well-being and relationships, Venus. So that's really an important part of Trump's chart. It's got a lot to do with, what gives him a sense of well-being, comfort, and security. And all that's going to be transformed. To transform, it's Pluto. So he's going to have to go down into the bowels of his unconscious and relive earlier events that happened in his life, traumatic and otherwise, and start letting go of what he's put his hat on, hung his hat on, as far as security and sense of well-being. It'll all change. And the way it's going to change is the things in his life that feel secure are not going to be secure for him anymore over the next couple of years. Now keep in mind that the United States Pluto is involved in this too. So the United States Pluto is opposite this Saturn-Venus in Trump's chart. Pluto for the United States is in its second house in Capricorn at 27 degrees. This is, for all practical purposes, the military-industrial complex of the United States. Pluto in the second house, money, resources, etc. Pluto power. This is the military-industrial complex for the United States. And it's going to be transformed appreciably over the next few years. In fact, the United States will experience its first Pluto return during that time period, 2019 to 2023. And that's because Pluto doesn't return to itself for like 245 or 50 years. And that's how old the United States is. So they have a Pluto return coming. At the same time the Pluto return is going to be going on, Jupiter and Saturn are both going to be conjuncting that same spot in the zodiac, 27 degrees of Capricorn, over these next few years. So the military-industrial complex in the United States is going to be transformed in a huge way, in a big way, so that the old can leave us and the new come into our lives. I've talked many times before about Age of Aquarius and how that's got to do with diversity within unity. So that's not only for the United States, but it's for the whole world, is part of diversity within unity. The way it's set up now isn't working for the country or for the world, because no one can be judged, no group of people anyway, like a race, sexual orientation, nationality, can be judged on merely those things. For there to be diversity, we have to accept people, how they're made, what their cultural lifestyle is, etc. So we have a long way to go in that part of diverse but unified. And then as far as unified goes, we certainly have a lot of work to do there, because people are like considering everyone else enemies all the time. My family, your family's my enemy. My country, your country's my enemy. Your religion's my enemy. Whatever you stand for, if I don't like you, you're my enemy. Or if you're competing for the same goods, resources, whatever, then you're my enemy. That's got to stop to the extent that it's at. Otherwise, we'll never have that diversity within unity consciousness that's necessary for the Age of Aquarius. And I think we will get there, because that's what the Age of Aquarius is. So what each of us has to do is change our consciousness over the next few years. We've already started to do that. And we'll have to continue doing that. Our sense of who we are, each of us individually too, and what our lifestyle is, what we believe in, all of that is going through big transformation now, and will continue, because our consciousness needs to be aligned with the Age of Aquarius. I remember back in the 70s, many of us were having our consciousness changed rapidly as the world was changing so fast. Like what you believed one moment and what you ended up believing the next moment or the next couple of years, totally different. So we all have to be ready with an open mind to changing the way we think and the way we look at things, because things are changing and we need to change with it. That doesn't mean the core integrity of who you are or I am needs to change, but it means the form that we are in or present is needing to change. So this April and May will start some of the changes that I'm talking about. In April, the United States, or May, there will be a Mars opposite Jupiter configuration Mars in Gemini, Jupiter in Sagittarius. And they'll oppose each other in early May, right at the United States Mars that we've been talking about. So now you know if something is aspecting the United States Mars, it's going to be aspecting Trump's Sun and Moon. By the way, to add a little bit to Trump's Sun and Moon, Sun in Gemini, Moon in Sagittarius, he was born at a lunar eclipse. That's a powerful time to be born, at a lunar eclipse. So every time something triggers that part of his chart, it's almost as if he's reliving that time when the lunar eclipse happened at his birth. So that's what will happen in early May to the United States Mars and to his Sun and Moon. And Sun and Moon, like I said before, the Sun and Moon together are like a core of who we are, each of us. The Sun is like our consciousness, our radiating light of consciousness. And the Moon is our inner light, our usually gentle inner light that during darker times helps us. It's also our instincts and our feelings. So those two placements in Trump's chart will be aspected. Whenever there's like a Mars-Jupiter, which is a really strong combination, that means that would be a big effect. Keep in mind that Jupiter will continue triggering the United States Mars all year long. So the United States, to keep the stance that it's got now, which is domination over others, is most likely for a while. Trump fits into that because he's conjunct the United States Mars. So the way the United States operates sometimes by dominating others, taking its resources, etc., like we did in Iraq, for instance. He's connected to that. And you can see some of the people he's hired, like Bolton, are also a part of a real hawkish attitude in the world. So there's another element in that mid to late degrees of Capricorn that I want to talk about. There's something called a vertex in a person's chart. And I don't want to get into the technicalities of that now because we've got limited time. But I have found the vertex in a person's chart to be especially important for when planets hit that spot or opposite that spot. It feels like fated events happen. And also, if people that you meet have important planets right at your vertex or just opposite your vertex, those people will likely be a very important person in your life. So, interestingly, the United States vertex is at almost 22 degrees of Cancer. Trump's vertex is at about 22 degrees of Capricorn, directly opposite. But again, it's another element that I saw when I looked to him to be the president, and that's that part of both of their charts will be aspected during that first term, and they'll both be affected by it. So in May of 2019, April, May, right in there, Pluto is at 22 degrees of Capricorn. And so that will affect and maybe have a sense of fatedness for both the United States and Trump around that time. Now, Pluto's going to come back around that spot again. Saturn's going to be at that same spot. Jupiter's going to be at that same spot in 2020. So that element of things that are fated or meant to be is going to be powerful over the next couple of years for both Trump and the United States. I think you might be seeing right now how powerful the transformation that's coming is going to be. So let's move later to 2019. And Saturn will station in September of 2019 exactly or very closely opposite the United States Sun. The United States Sun is in Cancer. So that's going to also feel, Saturn itself feels like fate a lot, or something that's going to happen. And there's nothing you can do about it. And that happens in September of 2019. And then in December of 2019, we have another eclipse season. Actually, we've got one in July, and then another one in December. And the one in December is a solar eclipse, which is opposite the United States, Venus and Jupiter, and it is conjunct Trump's Mercury. So the eclipses that happen then will also be very powerful for both the United States and for Trump. When things affect the United States, Venus and Jupiter, it means that it's affecting their sense of well-being, their sense of security. So let's move into 2020. 2020 will rock things more than 2019. And that means in our worlds, individual worlds too, things are going to be changing and shifting very quickly. It's really important for each one of us to move with the change. If you don't move with change, then what happens is that change comes in ways that you don't like. So it's good to get in touch with what is needing to change in my life. And if you've got planets in your natal chart that are going to be transited by where the planets are for the next few years, then you will have change coming into your life. You can count on it. So for you to choose that change is a good strategy to have. So in 2020, January, there's an eclipse on the 10th at 20 degrees of Cancer. It's a lunar eclipse. Back to the vertex again. That lunar eclipse aspects the vertex of both the United States and Trump. And Saturn and Pluto make an exact conjunction in Capricorn that month in January, close to where that eclipse is. 22 degrees of Saturn of Capricorn. Both Saturn and Pluto will conjunct there. Their first conjunction at this time over the next few years. And it's, like I said, right at those two vertexes again. So something fated is going to feel really powerful. And then Jupiter will follow up and it'll conjunct that same spot later in 2020 because Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto are all going to be in mid to late Capricorn in 2020. Moving along in 2020, you'll see that in June, on the solstice, on the 21st of June, there will be a solar eclipse that happens then. Now, the last time I saw an eclipse happen on the solstice, summer solstice, was in 2001. And that summer, I was writing a publication at that time, and I wrote an article saying that something really big is going to happen in the United States and other places in the world too, because that's really rare to have an eclipse happen on a solstice or an equinox. And of course, you know what happened before that summer was out, is we had 9/11 here in the United States. So that alerted me quite a bit when I saw that, saying, well, we can expect some really momentous things to happen in the world the summer of 2020. Also into May and June of 2020, Jupiter will be conjunct that same military-industrial complex, Pluto, of the United States. And Pluto will be very close to being exactly conjunct or opposite the United States Mercury from its natal chart. And that Mercury in its natal chart is opposite Pluto in its natal chart, which is the military-industrial complex again. So there it is hit. Now when you move into July 5th, there's another eclipse, lunar eclipse. This one is exactly conjunct and opposite because it's the sun in Cancer, moon in Capricorn. 13 degrees. What's there? United States sun. That's going to be quite affected. In the United States natal chart, they have sun in Cancer, square Saturn in Libra in the 10th house. What that signifies is a very liberal approach, the Cancer in the 8th house, and a very conservative approach, Saturn in Libra in the 10th. And because it's square, it plays out in our lives as a complete separation between our conservatives and our liberals. Now, there's always been some of that, but over the last couple of years, it's been off the charts, conflictual. And this will be triggered in July of 2020 because it's really close to the United States Sun-Saturn square in its natal chart. Saturn in August 2020 will be conjunct the United States Pluto military-industrial complex again. Kind of unbelievable how all those three planets are all going to be making an aspect to the Pluto in the United States chart, its military-industrial complex. So you can pretty much expect that the military-industrial complex is really, number one, it's going to be challenged and is going to shore itself up and get meaner than ever. But at the same time, it's going to be transforming, and you'll see rays of light coming in for a new world that's going to blossom, that's not run by the military-industrial complex. Hey, how about this for a way for the world to run? The people. First of all, the United States, that's our Constitution, Bill of Rights, is the people run the country. Why don't we do it for a change? And the world should be that way too. The people run the world, not privileged, wealthy people. That's what we need to fight for. I believe that's what we will fight for over the next couple of years. So that means that inside each one of us, we have to kind of reconcile what that means, what kind of change in our consciousness we need to have, and to get into the age of Aquarius. And that brings me to another aspect that'll be coming up, and that's Jupiter will be making conjunction to the United States moon, and Uranus will be squaring that United States moon. This is all in the early 2020s. What is the moon? The moon in Aquarius in the third house for the United States, it's the values of equality, freedom, being liberated from kings and queens and tyrants and those that tell the people what to do. So that's a good aspect that'll be coming up. Jupiter conjunct the United States moon, bringing us back to our core values. So I think you might have a pretty good sense of what 2020 is going to be, especially the summer of 2020. Remember, we're going to have that eclipse on the solstice, and then we have another eclipse, a lunar one, that's exactly triggers the United States Sun-Saturn square. The battle between liberal and conservative will really be raging at that time. Oh, that's right. We have an election not too many months later. So it kind of fits in, doesn't it? That the war between liberal and conservative will get even more intense as we get through July. And also both Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter too will all be at the vertex of the United States and Trump. July, August, September, October, November. So that's a lot at that fated place. It's also a lot, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, 2020, 2021, at the military-industrial complex Pluto in the United States chart, which is also opposite Trump's Venus-Saturn conjunction, his security. So odds that he'll get reelected, slim, 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 slim. I don't know for sure. I feel pretty confident he's not going to get reelected. But then we, the people, have to decide that, don't we? So let me add this. In December of 2020, very end of 2020, Jupiter conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. And I've been saying for a long time that we're going to have a strong sense that a portal has opened to the age of Aquarius. Does that mean that I believe we are totally in the age of Aquarius? It means, yeah, we have started our journey through the age of Aquarius, but it's not like everything will be perfect at that time. There'll still be a lot going on that is transforming us and getting us into the consciousness of that age of Aquarius. But I believe that when you get around to the very end of 2020 and then the early 2020s, you'll have a strong sense that there's a lot that's happening to build that new world, that diversity with the unity, that world of love and truth being what runs our consciousness, our attitudes, and the world that we live in. And not just America, but the world itself. So I'll be doing more videos and also recordings to help us through what these next few years are going to be like. And I'm not exaggerating or trying to be provocative in any way when I say they're going to be enormously transformational years. You can count on that. We'll know more what that means and the details of fleshing it out as we get more through these next few years. You can look for the Middle East to be an important place of change. The economy is not going to stay with the same economy that it is. Remember, the military-industrial complex of the United States will be threatened, and that means that its power through its military and through its economy will be challenged. So it will be a time to change, but you don't have to panic on it. Just look for the signs and symbols, stay centered, stay in your hearts with the advisor of your head, and make love and truth your guidelines for living, and you're going to be fine. You may not be doing exactly what your ego demands that you do, but you'll be doing what is right for your soul as we move through these highly transformational years. I consider it an honor to be here, moving through what we're moving through now, because it's like a changing of the way we humans do our lives. And that's like just a great time to be alive, I believe. I hope you feel that way too. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.